So let's start out by covering basic concepts that will start becoming more and more used as we go. So film is made out of images. These images, when played one after each other at a certain speed, they create the illusion of motion. So 1 second of film, for example, is made out of 24 images being played one after the other and after the other. For our animation and film purposes, we'll start referring to images as frames. It's also important to differentiate the mediums of film and television when it comes to time units. When in film 1 second is made out of 24 frames, in American television, on the other hand, 1 second is made out of 30 frames. The American television system is called NTSC, and it stands for National Television System Committee. In Europe, for example, it's called PAL system, and in his system, 1 second is made out of 25 images instead of 30. For Animation Mentor, we're asking that you animate in 24 frames per second, as it will keep everyone on the same page, and we'll be able to refer to timing in this measurement for consistency. So basically, those laws of motion, they can be summarized on the fact that once something starts to move, it takes a while to stop moving. So things take a while to start moving, and they take a while to stop. And the bigger whatever is moving, the bigger the object is, it's gonna take longer to start moving. Take, for example, an elephant. It's gonna, there's so much weight on that animal that, it's not, an elephant is not gonna be like, and it's gonna start moving. Like an elephant, it starts to move slowly, and and then it starts walking. And the same thing with stopping. The bigger the object, the bigger, the longer it's gonna take that object to come to a stop. It's very proportional. What does that mean for us, animators? I don't care about all the physics and I don't care about definitions, but to me I'm concerned about okay, how can I apply those words to my work? So for example, gravity. What is gravity?
With something like gravity, it's just important to pay attention to gravity based on what your character is, what the weight of your character is, whether your character is based on living on the moon, or if it lives on Earth or it's underwater. The gravity of these things are different. Like underwater, something goes up, doesn't necessarily have to come back down. But in real life, if we go up, boom, we got to come back down eventually. And it's paying attention to the timing of that, that there's a little slow out at the top, and then we kind of accelerate as we come down. Yeah. And that can be on something very simple as a bouncing ball, but then can later be applied to human characters and every character.
You have a ball, and then that ball falls. It's important that from an animation point of view that that ball is
there is not a constant speed on the way it's falling, because then it wouldn't feel like it's actually falling. It would just feel like it's being supported somehow. So it's important that, like, you know, if it's falling because of gravity, and that's where gravity takes place, you know, there will be more frames at the beginning, and as it starts to accelerate because of gravity, then there's gonna be less frames on the bottom, you know?
And depending on the space of how far it falls, like if you drop a penny, you know, in like a cup from the top of a building, they're gonna slow out and then they're gonna speed up, but they're not constantly speeding up the whole time. That speed then will become constant. And it's important to know that when it hits the ground, it doesn't slow as it gets to the ground. It doesn't know the ground's there. Just boom, it hits the ground. Like that. And then it will, based on gravity, when it lands, depending on what the object is made of, it's going to bounce up again and then bounce, and have residual bounces. And that's all dependent on the weight of the object, what it's made of, and how far it does fall. Like if I drop something just off this bench, you know, it might not bounce as much, but if I dropped it, you know, threw it way up high in the air and then boom, it came down, it's going to react differently, and it's going to react based on gravity and the weight of itself.
For example, you have like somebody running, you know, and it gets into a wall. Well,
it runs into a wall, yeah.
Runs into a wall, and you know he's been accumulating all this inertia. So therefore, it's almost like inertia is almost like all this motion energy built up that you have to release somehow. So for example, if I'm running like, you know, all that stuff, what is that? That's a consequence of inertia.
For me, inertia is, I don't know, just the energy an object has when it's in motion. So if you just, I mean, it's a very simple example to look at for that. It's just like on a bouncing ball. You know, just like when it squashes down on the ground, it's building its inertia. It's getting momentum, or it's getting ready to have momentum. When it comes off the ground, that's the inertia that's created from that anticipation on the ground. So it's that force, that the energy that it gets when it's moving forward, and that again happens, you know, on a person if they're running, or if somebody's standing there and they get hit, boom, you know, all that, the inertia of somebody punching affects the other object that it comes in contact with. So it's the energy in motion, I guess. We say different terms, they almost mean exactly the same thing. One is like momentum and inertia. They pretty much go hand in hand. To gain momentum, you have to, you know, you're gaining inertia as well.
For example, in all the Warner Brothers cartoons, you have the Roadrunner, and the Roadrunner always gets like, and when it stops, he just doesn't stop into a still frame. Like they stop it, but then he does the whole vibration, like, and that's a result of how much momentum he's had from running so fast. You know, character bouncing ball, any object, if you have it at a lot of speed, you have to make sure like there is a reaction to that amount of speed, and that reaction, that's basically the inertia.
It's like a bowling ball and a beach ball. When you really think about it, what sells the weight there? When I'm thinking about it on just a simple level, a lot is like how long it takes to hang at the top. You know, and it comes down. They kind of accelerate as they come down. But like a bowling ball, you know, if you bounce it, it's boom. You know, it doesn't hang up there as long as, say, a beach ball does. And paying attention to that and how that's animated and how much time in terms you put into the timing of that object is really going to sell the weight of it and how it reacts to the ground and what happens to that energy. I think in terms of timing, like the most important thing to take away from this, especially as a beginning animator, is that different objects have different weights, and therefore they will react differently to how they're being affected. If it's like a bowling ball rolls off the table, or you know a beach ball rolls off the table, it's different. You know, you're showing different weights and different timings. So those timings apply. Every object has something different, and in terms of timing, there's more principles involved, like follow through. In that Roadrunner example, like if Roadrunner stops and he stops, he's going to follow through the motion. But what does that mean? It means that the inertia of the character going is now stopped in its timing. Therefore, to sell that even better is to show the inertia continues forward and then kind of relaxes and settles. And that's one of the most important things to take away from timing in general, is that, you know, it reacts differently. You have to keep in mind the weight of the object and what happens to that energy once it's stopped.